The real reason so few individuals face accountability for the crimes of the COVID response lies in a profound collective complicity that binds participants across every level of governance, institutions, and society. This complicity, described as being cemented in blood, and in this case, cemented in COVID blood, reflects the shared guilt that arises when large numbers of people in positions of authority actively participated in, enforced, or benefited from policies that produced widespread harm. The framework identifies these harms as COVID treason through unconstitutional power centralization, COVID murder through foreseeable deaths and injuries, and COVID child abuse through medical and coercive interventions on minors. These are malum in se offenses of radical evil that transcend ordinary policy disputes and demand perpetual accountability. Yet the very breadth of participation creates a powerful disincentive for prosecution, as holding one actor accountable risks exposing the complicity of many others who occupied similar roles in public and private spheres. The phrase, cemented in blood, is a metaphorical expression meaning a bond, agreement, alliance, or collective guilt that is sealed or made permanent through shared participation in violence, wrongdoing, or the shedding of innocent blood. It implies that the participants are now mutually bound by the crime. They are cemented together because revealing or punishing one person's actions would expose or endanger the others. The blood represents the real human cost, deaths, suffering, and harm, that ties them together in complicity. Historically, the concept appears in the biblical story of Cain and Abel, where innocent blood cries out from the ground, creating permanent moral guilt. In descriptions of the French Revolution and Reign of Terror or communist revolutions, where new regimes were said to be cemented in blood through mass violence. In organized crimes, blood in, blood out principle, and accounts in wars, where the scale of atrocities created a wall of silence among perpetrators. In the context of the COVID pandemic, cemented in COVID blood means that so many people across government, public health, corporations, media, education, and law enforcement participated in or enabled policies that caused widespread harm, including deaths, injuries, and coercion of children. Because the participation was so broad and documented, prosecuting one major figure risks exposing the complicity of many others, leading the system to protect itself through collective silence. The blood here refers to the real human cost, the people who died, were injured, or whose lives were destroyed by the mandates and policies. This phenomenon operates as a civilizational governance problem. Public officials at federal, state, and local levels, corporate executives, media leaders, hospital administrators, educational officials, and law enforcement personnel all played parts in implementing or enabling the policies. The participation was overt and documented through public statements, signed orders, enforcement actions, and institutional coordination. Because so many individuals and institutions became entwined in the response, the pursuit of justice against any single figure threatens to unravel the entire network. The result is a collective reluctance to enforce existing laws or create new mechanisms for accountability. The crimes, cemented in blood, become protected not by legal technicalities alone but by the shared stake that powerful actors hold in maintaining silence and inaction. The concept of being cemented in blood draws from the historical understanding that certain collective wrongs create bonds of mutual liability that deter internal reckoning. In the COVID context, this manifests as a societal agreement, spoken or unspoken, to overlook the offenses because too many people in positions of influence would be implicated. The solution requires a deliberate process of identification, removal, and replacement of COVID criminals through legal and electoral means. By focusing on the most documented public figures and using the imprescriptible nature of the offenses, society can begin chipping away at the structure of complicity. This process opens pathways for broader accountability while recognizing that the crimes extend beyond the COVID response into interconnected networks of power. The nature of collective complicity cemented in blood. Participation in the COVID response created a web of shared responsibility that spans public and private entities. Government officials who issued mandates, corporate leaders who enforced them, media figures who amplified them, and institutional administrators who implemented them all became linked through actions that produced foreseeable harm. This complicity is cemented in blood because the policies resulted in tangible human suffering, including deaths, injuries, and developmental damage to children. The public record of statements, votes, policies, and enforcement actions makes the participation visible and difficult to deny. As a result, those in power recognize that prosecuting one prominent figure could trigger a cascade effect, exposing accomplices and co-conspirators at every level. The historical context of cemented in blood refers to situations in which collective wrongdoing creates mutual vulnerability that discourages internal justice. In the COVID pandemic, this dynamic is amplified by the scale of involvement. Federal agencies, state governments, local authorities, pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, schools, and media organizations all operated within the same framework. The pre-planning of immunities and legal shields further reinforced the bond of complicity, as participants understood that the architecture of protection was designed to shield the entire enterprise. This shared stake in maintaining the status quo explains the widespread institutional reluctance to investigate or prosecute. The crimes, whether labeled as COVID treason, COVID murder, or COVID child abuse, become protected by the very breadth of participation they engendered. The governance problem this creates is multifaceted. Authorities who had a duty to protect citizens instead participated in the policies. Law enforcement and judicial actors who enforced or failed to check the measures became part of the system. Private entities that profited from or enabled the response added another layer of entanglement. The result is a societal stalemate in which no one in power has a strong incentive to pursue accountability, because doing so risks implicating themselves or their allies. This dynamic extends to interconnected criminal networks beyond the COVID response, making the removal of COVID criminals a necessary first step toward broader reform. The cascade effect and the reluctance to prosecute. The fear of a cascade effect lies at the heart of the societal barrier to accountability. If one high-profile figure is successfully prosecuted for COVID murder or COVID child abuse, the legal theories, evidence, and precedents established could be applied to others who occupied similar roles. This creates a powerful deterrent against initiating proceedings, as participants at all levels recognize their potential exposure. The public and documented nature of the participation makes denial difficult once the process begins. The pre-planned immunities and legal shields, while formidable, are not absolute when challenged through the lens of malum in se offenses and local victims. Yet the collective understanding that everyone was involved produces a de facto agreement to overlook the crimes. This reluctance extends across public and private spheres. Elected officials, appointed bureaucrats, corporate executives, and institutional leaders all understand that accountability for one could destabilize the positions and protections of many. The interconnected nature of the crimes, linking the COVID response to other events through shared networks, further reinforces the impulse toward collective silence. The solution requires a deliberate strategy of identification and removal. By naming COVID criminals through their public records and using electoral and legal mechanisms to replace them, society can begin breaking the bond of complicity. This process is necessarily gradual but creates openings for genuine accountability. The framework emphasizes starting with the most documented public figures whose actions are recorded in video, statements, votes, and policies. Their removal disrupts the protective network and encourages lower-level participants to provide evidence against superiors. This cascading disclosure aligns with the imprescriptible status of the offenses and the event-specific jurisprudential model. The goal is not immediate mass prosecution but the systematic dismantling of the structures that enable and protect the crimes. Once key COVID criminals are removed, new leadership untainted by participation can pursue broader investigations and punishments. The solution through identification, removal, and replacement. The path forward requires focused identification of COVID criminals through their public records. Officials who issued mandates, executives who enforced them, administrators who implemented them, and leaders who promoted them are identifiable through statements, votes, policies, and actions. The term COVID criminal serves as protected rhetorical designation that highlights their role without requiring immediate criminal conviction. Electoral removal, through voting out incumbents and supporting candidates committed to accountability, provides one mechanism. Legal procedures, including local prosecutions anchored in specific victims, provide another. The replacement process must be vigilant. New officials must be scrutinized to ensure they are not merely extensions of the previous network or participants in interconnected criminal activities. The goal is to create openings for genuine reform by installing individuals willing to utilize existing legal frameworks or support new interpretations that pierce the immunity shielding malum in se offenses. This includes pursuing the full range of COVID crimes and related offenses committed during the pandemic. The process is slow and requires sustained societal pressure, but each successful removal weakens the bond of complicity and advances the cause of perpetual accountability. The ultimate objective is to restore constitutional order by holding COVID criminals responsible for their actions. The punishment frameworks, including reciprocal measures that mirror the harms inflicted, serve as conceptual models for justice. The local jurisdictional pathway, combined with systematic identification and removal, offers a practical route to begin this work. By confronting the reality of collective complicity cemented in blood, society can move from paralysis to purposeful action. The public record stands ready. The only remaining requirement is the collective will to act upon it. Conclusion: cemented in blood explained. Collective complicity blocks COVID accountability. The phenomenon of being cemented in blood explains the widespread institutional reluctance to pursue accountability for COVID crimes. The broad participation across public and private spheres created a mutual vulnerability that discourages internal reckoning. This collective complicity protects the offenses of COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse by making prosecution risky for those in power. The pre-planned immunities and legal shields reinforce this dynamic, transforming potential justice into a shared interest in silence. The solution lies in deliberate, sustained action to identify, name, and remove COVID criminals through electoral and legal means. Starting with the most documented public figures creates momentum and openings for broader accountability. The local jurisdictional pathway, anchored in specific victims, provides a practical mechanism to challenge immunities and establish precedent. This process is necessarily gradual but essential for breaking the bond of complicity. Ultimately, confronting crimes cemented in blood, and in this context, cemented in COVID blood, requires societal resolve to prioritize justice over collective self-protection. The imprescriptible nature of the offenses and the self-evident public record provide the foundation. By systematically removing COVID criminals and replacing them with individuals committed to accountability, society can restore constitutional order and ensure that radical evil does not escape consequences through the very structures designed to enable it. The path exists. The choice to follow it remains.